This is the quarter 2 benchmark review. This is unit 5, and we're going to start off with direct variation. So it says point x is an element of direct variation, which point other than x is also an element of direct variation. So to answer this question, we need to know, what does a direct variation graph actually look like? Well, there's two things that we're looking for. One is that it's a straight line, and the second is it must go through 0, 0. So if I take a straight line starting at 0, 0, I know I have to go through x for starters, and then it's just a case of which other point does it actually go through. And you can see quite clearly for this one, it goes through point B. Oops. So our answer for this one is B. So make sure you're aware of those two facts when you're answering this question. Another similar style question is you might be asked to click on the board and actually give an example of another point. Now if they ask you to do that, you have to look at the connection between these two. So I can see this goes up 3 and across 2. So if I go up 3 more and across 2, that'll put me to B, and then I can click the point. It's not as easy to physically draw the line on with a computer screen, but you have tools to do that for the SOL. The chart shows how the cost per person to rent a vacation home varies with the number of people in a group. Which statement about this relation is true? Now, the first thing to notice is, look at the number of people. This one goes up. But look at the cost per person, it actually goes down. So obviously the more people you have, the cheaper it is, because you can split the costs amongst you. So as this one goes up, this one actually goes down. So they're inverses of each other. So I know straight away this is not an example of direct variation. So I can get rid of those two options. And for the inverse variation, if I actually know what the definition for inverse variation is, I can actually answer this straight away. Direct variation is y equals kx, like your straight line graph, y equals ax plus b. For inverse variation, then it's actually the opposite of this. So instead of having this form here, what we could actually say is xy equals k. Or if we were to rearrange that, we could say y equals k over x. So the inverse part comes from, instead of multiplied by x, what's the opposite of that? Divided by x. So that should actually give me a clue as to which is the correct answer for this. Because I can see the divide by x here, which is this answer here, whereas I don't see that on any of the other questions. That one says that I'm multiplying by x. Now I can check my answer to make sure that it works. So if I do 2,650 divided by 5, do I get 530? You do. If I do 2,650 divided by x, do I get 331? And yes, I do. So that should be your little check. Now if you thought it was b, then you should actually substitute it for x here. If I do 2,650 times by 5, do I get 530? And the answer would quite clearly be no for that question. A lot of questions tend to do the inverse variation, so make sure you're aware of that. As one set of figures goes up, the other set of values goes down. Or it could be the other way around. If this one was to go down, the cost would go up. What is the equation of a line that passes through a certain point and has an x-intercept of 3, 0? Now what I really need to do for this question is I need to figure out what is the slope of this. I can see it's probably going to be 2 or negative 2, so I could do with trying to figure that out. Now I could either go ahead and try and work out what the slope is, or I could possibly do a formula. Now in the previous video I did actually do the calculation for slope by hand, so this time I'm going to do it a slightly different way. So 3, 0 is here. 4, negative 2 would be across one more and then down 2. So I can see from this that this is a negative slope. So I actually can tell from my answer then it's not going to be C, and also it's not going to be D. So I need to figure out, is it going to be A or is it going to be B? Now if I actually use graph paper for this, I could actually continue this whole line backwards and just figure out what is the intercept for this one. I can almost tell from my very poor scale here that it's not 3, and it looks like it's probably 6, but I'm going to be a little more accurate. So I have a point. Actually I have a choice of 2 points for this question, and I also have a slope, the slope being negative 2. So I can use my point slope formula. Now it's probably actually easier to use the 3, 0 point, but I'm going to use this point to check because it has a negative number on, just to remind us what we're supposed to do when that happens. So this is my point x1, this is my point y1, so I'm going to substitute into this formula. So I'm going to subtract the y value, which is negative 2. So if I subtract a negative, that's going to become a positive. The slope we figured out was negative 2. X minus the x value, which is 4. So x minus 4. So the main thing to be careful of when you're plugging in here is, whatever it says up here, you're actually going to write down the opposite, because that's what we have for the negatives here. So this was negative 2, so I wrote down positive 2. This was positive 4, so I'm going to write down negative 4. Now I can start doing my steps. So I'm going to distribute here. So negative 2 times negative 4, two negatives, give me that positive. And then to solve for y, I'm going to take away 2 from both sides. So 8 take away 2 is 6. Therefore, just as we suspected, the answer is 8 for this question. But quite a good question actually to do just by graphing. Get a sheet of graph paper out, plot those 2 points, join the line up, and then figure out the slope and where it